Hello everyone, this is Hena Sadaf, and today this is the third class of the chapter Natural Topography, and we are discussing the people and economy of northern mountains of Pakistan. So we'll be looking at the factors which influence the lifestyle of people. You would now have a general idea about the topography. So we'll be considering topography as the major factor which affects the choice of economic activities and the kind of lifestyle people have in the northern mountains of Pakistan. So far in this chapter, we have discussed about the topography of these areas and drainage pattern, what kind of landforms are found there, and in general, we have also discussed what kind of climate do we have because of high altitude in these areas in north of Pakistan or in the northern mountains of Pakistan. What we have not discussed yet is that these areas are not very densely populated, and it has a lot to do with the kind of topography we have here, because there are mountains, there's rugged topography. The areas which are above snow line, they do not allow a lot of economic activities, a variety of economic activities there, and agriculture is not possible in these areas. And obviously, when the temperatures are sub-zero, people would be facing a lot of difficulties doing their everyday tasks. So these are all the hurdles which are faced by the people due to the kind of topography we have in the north of Pakistan. So, when we hear the name of the northern mountains of Pakistan or the northern areas, we have a general idea about the kind of lifestyle people have there. We think that they live a simple life, they are mostly indigenous people, and if we think about the kind of economic activities they have there, then the first thing that comes in our mind is obviously tourism, and it has a lot to do with the topography of that area, because we have discussed that the mountain slopes in most of these mountains are covered with dense natural vegetation in the areas where conifers and alpines can grow. Other than that, we have discussed that these areas are providing routes for trade with the northern and northwestern countries. But this is just the simple information or simple knowledge any layman can have about the northern mountains of Pakistan. We'll discuss in detail what choices in economic activities do they have, and how their lifestyle has been attracting tourists from all around the world. The most common economic activity in the northern parts of Pakistan or in the northern mountains is agriculture. You must be wondering that I have described these areas as extremely rugged with steep gradients and with harsh climatic conditions. But there are areas which are at lower altitude in these areas, in these mountains, and the valley regions, of course. These are ideal for agriculture, and people have been practicing agriculture in these areas uh, for years now, and they have adopted to the climatic condition. They have been growing crops which can survive in such climatic conditions, and other than that, they have made terraces on the mountain slopes so that they can have level land to practice agriculture. This we have referred in the chapter forest as well. Other than that, we also have fruit orchards where at low temperatures there are a variety of fruits which grow in these northern parts, And they are not only famous in Pakistan, these fruits are also exported all around the world. We also have dry fruits growing in these areas, and this is the reason we have agriculture as the main economic activity, because there are certain type of crops and there are certain type of fruits which grow at the altitudes or at the climate that we have in these parts. But what is noteworthy here is that most of the agriculture which is practiced here is subsistence agriculture. It means people who are mostly busy in agriculture, they are growing it on a limited area and in a limited amount, because they do not have very vast plain areas, and whatever they grow is usually consumed within the family, and whatever excess they have, whatever surplus they have, it's sold in the local market. This picture is showing the agricultural fields in Hunza Valley. You can see in the background there are a lot of bare mountains, and where you can see debris has been collected at the foothill of the mountains because of lack of vegetation on these mountains because of erosion. And what we see here in this plain area, that there are a lot of small fields and there are houses as well. So the agriculture which has been practiced here, it's clearly visible that all these farms are of subsistence farmers because the size is rather small. Another important and common economic activity that people opt in these areas is known as transhumans. Transhumans is a system of livestock farming in which animals are kept in pastures on highlands up in the mountains during summer season, because the temperatures are bearable and there is grass and other vegetation growing. But as soon as the winters arrive, during severe winters, the animals are brought at the lower altitudes, and obviously they remain in the north of Pakistan, so temperatures are still low for them, and then animals are kept in the sheds, and food for these animals, fodder for these animals have been stored so that they could be fed during the winter season. So this is transhumance, which is also common in the north of Pakistan, and it enables people to rear animals even in extreme climatic conditions. Other than practicing agriculture, people also work in cottage industries and they make handicrafts and the other stuff, specifically during winters, because we have often discussed that winters are extreme in these areas. Winters are very harsh. Life outside is rather difficult, and trade and transportation has been suspended during most of these winter months in the northern areas of Pakistan. So it means they are unable to do a lot of economic activities that they were otherwise doing, so they prefer to stay inside their houses and they work in these cottage industries. They make handicrafts, they make embroidered materials such as shawls and handbags, which have great value in the local market for the local tourist and as well as for the international tourist. Other than that, they make carpets and rugs, which again are famous and are sold when the tourist, local, both local and international tourists, visit these areas. So this is how they mostly earn during winters. They, when they cannot do much outside their houses and they have to stay in. So we have discussed that agriculture is practiced in subsistence form. It means it's not growing a lot of food according to the need of the population, because the population is rapidly growing, but on the other hand they are unable to increase the cultivable area because of the natural factors. They do not have a lot of plain land, and because of the climatic factor, so whatever limited amount grows, it is processed in the food processing and fruit processing industry. It means this economic activity can be considered one important economic activity of the people of the north. So in this picture, what we see is basically fruit processing industry, and we can see they have been cleaning or collecting apricots which have been dried under the sun. So they do not use a lot of modern methods. Mostly primitive methods are used for these fruit processing industries, and yet this is an important economic activity for these people, because a lot of fruits, as we have discussed in the previous slides, are grown on higher altitude, and these fruits are then processed. These are dried or converted into other products, and these are supplied in the local markets and consumed by the local population, and the tourists also buy these dry fruits when they visit these areas. And in the agricultural products, whatever food grains they grow, they process those food grains in food processing industries. They make vegetable oil, and sugar refinery. Food processing industry is also found in this area, and people have been working in it. One major economic activity, or the most commonly known to the people of Pakistan, is tourism. Because of the scenic beauty, because of the kind of landscapes we have there, because of natural vegetation, a lot of tourists visit these areas. But it is not only the topography, it's not only the climate of these areas which attract people to visit, attract tourists from all around the world. It is also the unique cultural heritage and the religious and archaeological foundations and historical backgrounds of these areas in the north. So these are not only physical factors, these are also human factors which have been attracting tourists. If we talk about Kailash Valley, if we talk about Hunza and Gilgit Baltistan, these people, the people living in these areas, they have their own cultural heritage, and obviously there are archaeological sites as well, which are a major source of attraction for the tourist. And this way, the people of the northern mountains of Pakistan, they earn their living, and they have hotels and guest houses and shops, and that's why their handicrafts are sold in the tourist, and are famous in amongst these tourists. And if we talk about tourism, then obviously there are times when the number of people who visit these areas, they increase as compared to the amount of facilities that could be provided, because these areas are not that developed. We do not have proper infrastructure in most of the areas, and when there are a lot of people visiting these areas, we lack facilities, which lead to further problems for the local population, for the tourist, and also it harms the environment. And this is one major source of pollution in these areas as well. During today's class, I have often said that these northern mountains have poor infrastructure, and I have discussed about lack of facilities. Now, why do we have these kind of conditions here? There are obviously the topographical reasons or natural reasons for this. We have steep gradients and deep valleys and gorges are there. There are streams and rivers which have formed gorges and V-shaped valleys. It means the land is not plain. And if we talk about road construction and maintenance in these areas, then it becomes extremely difficult. Not only because of the kind of topography we have, the kind of landforms we have, but also due to lack of suitable workforce. Not all the people are equipped with the knowledge of construction of bridges and roads in this tough topography. And if we talk about these areas, these are most of the areas are rather remote. They are very far away, and if a normal human being cannot easily reach those areas, then how can we possibly supply the construction material to those areas? And even if we do so, the supply cost would be high, and we would have to hire the suitable workforce obviously from somewhere else, and it's going to add to the cost of construction of these infrastructure facilities. uh, this you have to note here, it's noteworthy here that infrastructure does not only mean uh, transportation and communication. It's a rather uh, wider term. It includes the supply of utilities as well, electricity, gas, and the other kind of basic necessities we all have been using in the cities. So there is poor infrastructure in the northern areas, and we have just discussed that why is it so. And even if a road has been constructed, electricity has been supplied, or maybe water is being supplied, then there are still chances of damage due to harsh weather. And if there's a landslide or if there's an avalanche, then obviously it would damage the infrastructure and it is going to cost a lot of money for maintenance.